New year, same stocks. Driving the bus, CES, Nvidia, taking over the world and getting several other companies to help them out. We'll cover those. Analysts, man, they're still working hard over the weekend to bring you new ratings here. They don't want to miss out on this year's rally. Cameron Dawson, 835, get her outlook on the market. And yes, folks, I do have my acronym, and I don't know if you guys are going to like it, but it's coming to you after our guest. It's a Tuesday here, Synthetic Wednesday on PreMarket Prep.
The volatility right now is really incredible.
Wow, look at that consolidation on the upper right chart.
You know what we've seen this earnings season? Some of these expected moves get even more violent. This is why I have switched my strategy 10 years ago. And if you're chasing, you're in trouble.
All right, good morning, traders and investors working on a 2-day winning streak. Can we make it a 3-day winning streak? Little dip overnight, but we're up 7.25 handles, 60, 20, 70, 75. Buck week again today, down 12 cents, just under 108 TLT. Part of my thesis with my acronym TLT, under 87 bucks, making a new low of the move. USO up 81 cents, 78.11, breaking out since that 74 level. GLD up $1.56, 244.75. SLV up 31 cents at 27.55, and Bitcoin is down 1,500 bucks, but still above that 100K level. Let me remove this. Let's bring on Triple D and Christian. I still haven't figured out a good nickname for Christian yet. Gentlemen, that is a busy night on Wall Street.
It's CF. We call him CF. But yeah,
there you go.
It was actually not a busy
what's your
night.
Middle name? What's your middle name?
Let's just stay. I think CF is good. Let's
stick
go
with that. We know I got the Triple D. So last night actually fairly quiet. S&P's fairly quiet here too. But the mover last night, had to stay up late, 9:30 Eastern start there, was the Consumer Electronics Show. And obviously Jensen Huang presenting at 9:30. He was a little bit late. He didn't really get on stage till 9:45. And he presented till well after 11. So it was late. It was a lot to watch. I watched the whole thing though. And there was movers off the show, guys, like major movers off the show. Not just NVIDIA, which is moving obviously this morning. And they presented so many cool things. Like you just realize how much NVIDIA is working with every technology company out there. But not just that. How much NVIDIA is actually, just working on everything as well. So it was impressive. Chips. They're talking about physical AI, humanoids, talking about working with companies, obviously, to work on full self-drive and full, driver automation, which, Tesla got to mention as well, but other companies too, which we're going to mention here in a second. Just impressive show, all kinds of stuff. And obviously the market's impressed too.
All right, we'll just go to NVIDIA real quick, making a new all-time high here in the pre-market session, right? We got I saw it traded over 153. So last time it got up here, we all know when that was. That was on earnings day. It caught a cold that day, ended up selling off, but right back up here now. Another big move since just over the last 3 sessions. We'll see if any kind of profit takers come in here in NVIDIA. I know this is one of your favorites, Christian.
Yeah, I thought that the speech was went on for a bit, and I thought it was interesting how many different products that they were kind of rolling out. I need to do like a little bit of a deeper dive into all the things that he was mentioning, because it was quite complicated to kind of follow if you're not like really, really tech savvy. But to me, it sounds like he's talked about a laptop and putting these chips in a laptop and how that's going to come out, I think, in March. Talked about a couple things coming out in January, and then he also went to kind of covered all corners of AI last night. He talked about the automated driving. He talked about so Uber's up on that. AUR has got the big lift, and it continues to be like, which I've heard this before in like some of the other presentations where he just kind of Jensen goes on like a tangent of like mentioning a couple different names, and AUR I think jumped up to like $11. I don't know where it was trading, and Dennis, you did a great job. I was listening, I was watching you tweet some of these moves out last night.
Yeah.
Some of them, like Micron, was the first one I think that really started to kind of move. And
Yeah.
you mentioned at one point, like in the after hours, like it was trading up like I don't know, $7 or something like that.
Yeah, $8-9. It got a little bit overdone on the Robinhood IBKR overnight session. That's where we see these moves happen because obviously the regular exchanges are closed. It's obviously given some of that back because it's only trading up about $4 here this morning. But I've just got even, looking, so this was a slide from their presentation last night. Just all the companies they're working with. This isn't even all the companies. They had another slide and another slide. This was one just showing one. So they're basically working with all technology companies here. I'll stop my screen share, but I just wanted to show that there just for a quick second. Ignore, I'm getting sick again. I just cannot stay healthy. It's unbelievable. This is the third time that I've been sick in the last 2 months, and I'm trying to fight off. I'm hoping the pneumonia is not coming back. I had pneumonia, and this is why my voice is but I can kind of feel the cough in my left lung again. I don't know if anybody knows that can come back. You can let me know, but I may have to go back to the doctor again because I don't feel sick, but I'm definitely getting something like a chest cold again here, hoping it's not pneumonia this time. But that's the tangent. Let's go back to the market.
You gotta quit smoking those Marlboros.
I know, I gotta quit smoking cigarettes. Maybe I should start smoking cigarettes. Maybe that would help me. Get all that smoke in there to kill all those viruses. Micron was the big mover, Christian.
Yep.
You're correct. They announced that they're going to be the main memory provider in their new chips, which I think everybody kind of got a glimpse of that. And obviously, yesterday, Micron had a huge move. No, I did not rebuy my Micron, which is a big mistake. I thought about it. I had it written. I talked about it at the 85 level. It got down there multiple times. I never did strike. Now it's 103, and I'm thinking, man, I sold it perfectly at 111. If I would have rebought 85, I would have played it perfectly. I think dips probably to be rebought Micron. I think dips probably to be bought technology. Like you watched that conference last night. I watched the whole thing. It's hard to be bearish technology with so many potential things coming up the pipeline. Like everything that Tesla's working on, other companies are going to be working on as well. I mean, you just think about automation and driving. You think about automation with humanoids. You think about automation with everything. And, and at one point in time, Jensen Huang introduced about a dozen humanoids on the stage, companies that he's working with. I couldn't really get a feel like if NVIDIA is planning on building their own humanoids or just working with other companies to build the technology to work with the humanoids. It sounded more like they're behind the tech behind it as opposed to actually coming in, but they did talk about making physical AI, so they might get into that too. I mean, so many implications here, but when you have a bearish thesis and think, wow, these tech stocks are overdone. Yeah, maybe some of them a bit overdone, but wow, there's going to be some really cool stuff coming in the next couple of years.
Why don't we just real quick, why don't you, give me the stocks like Micron here? I mean, there's nothing on the charts until you get back up to this 110 area. I will say an intermediate level, 108.60 was the close right before it had the pullback. So keep an eye on that. Mark Chaikin mentioned a while ago,
Yeah.
AUR. Oh,
Wow,
man,
Mark,
oh, man,
awesome.
oh, man. 11.16. 11.16 that thing got to this morning. I don't know where, and you know what? They are throwing some volume around in this thing. That's even above the recent high, the move. Mentioned a car company, right? Toyota?
Yeah, stopped during the presentation and said specifically, I want to announce a new partnership. And then that's with Toyota. And that was like he very much, because he's announcing, in partnerships and passing with everything. Like we're working with this company, but he specifically stopped and said, I want to mention a new partnership with Toyota. And on that, Toyota was trading around 190.5 and it popped to 197 like in a heartbeat. Back down 194. Again, these things overshoot on Robinhood a lot of times, but it's fun to watch anyways. But it's up $4 here too. Again, just showing you there's going to be, so many implications that we can't even think of at this point in time. And if you think, the other companies are standing still and Tesla's just going to, run away with it here, they're not. That's an eye opener for me too. That there's a lot of companies that NVIDIA is going to be work with, the AUR, the Toyota. None of that is great news for Tesla, But again, it was, obviously we're thinking, Tesla isn't going to just be the only company that's working on all this stuff. We knew there's lots of companies working on humanoids. Other companies are trying to solve full self-drive as well. We know Waymo's already operational. So the competition does exist, but, it's going to intensify. Everybody knows where we got to go. And, and he mentioned also, Uber got to mention too here, that they are also partnering with NVIDIA to accelerate autonomous mobility. So Uber trying to get involved as well. And Uber knows they have to get involved. Because if they stand still, Uber would be in a huge lot of trouble. Because once you have autonomous driving, you don't need all those Uber drivers. So they're going to have to be a big part of it as well. And I think they know that. So that's, good news for Uber shareholders that they're thinking about this. They're trying to go further with this. So lots of implications all over the place for tech stocks. Even though the S&P is flat, you have a lot of tech movers here today.
Someone, I don't remember who, but someone said a week ago about Uber that was seeing a lot of call activity. I think it was about a week ago, right in the beginning of the year. But
was that you?
It may have been. Someone said there was a
Christian,
lot of call activity going
again.
up on Uber.
This Christian Fromhertz, we got to give him a raise. We're going to give you a 25% raise, Christian, now on the spot.
100%.
So the problem is that 0 to times
100%.
25%. My kid will tell me what that is. we're all making 0 right now.
Uber. Oh yeah. Mentioning that, I did some computer work last night, so Dennis wouldn't yell at me, and I got that link working. So it is working, and I just want to. Brett Slavadavadu sent out a great recap yesterday. The link is working, and if it's not working, don't say anything because I don't want Dennis to yell at me
I'm
again.
going to right now to try to sign up. So premarketprep.com, right at the bottom, you can sign up for all these alerts. I'm trying to sign up. You have to hit the little disclaimer. Sign up. I just did it. Did it work? No.
Dennis, have you already signed up for it?
Don't announce it again, Joel, until we know for sure.
It was. I was told by. Wait, Dennis, are you using the same email as you used before?
Yeah. Why?
Okay. Well, there you go. Email? There's a user error. You can't. If you're already signed up for it, you're already signed up for it.
Okay, chat. If you are there, you can say they are saying it's worked. I wasn't able to sign up for it yesterday, so I
did you use the same email that you signed up? That is your email already?
When I signed up yesterday, it said no. Oops, something went wrong.
Okay.
And then I used the same email because I want to get it in that email.
Look at this.
Anyways, everybody says it works.
Works for me. Works for me.
So it's user error on my part this time. Chat sounds like it works, so I won't yell at Joel anymore.
Dennis admitted he's wrong.
So if you want alerts, if you want summaries of pre-market prep, go to premarketprep.com, go to the bottom, sign up for alerts and updates. We're there. And again, like we said in February, we're working for February. We got some really cool stuff coming at you guys. We're working behind the scenes like crazy. Probably why I'm getting sick because Joel's overworking me behind the scenes.
That's.
But we're working on some really, really cool stuff.
Do you want to finish up with the CES? Did we miss anything?
Yeah. No. Well, you got the main ones. You know what? When he says the 2 miles of copper wire in I don't know if it's one chip, but it's just like miles and miles of copper wire being used. I was like, you know what? I want to ask Christian this too. Maybe it's time to start thinking about buying some copper producers. Like FCX is in the gutter. Alcoa has been a dog. Is there a better play out there? Maybe there's other copper miners, or maybe we should just go buy the physical commodity. But it doesn't sound like copper is going to lose its demand anytime soon if all of this technology that NVIDIA is working with needs copper. What are your thoughts? Even copper, the commodity here, Christian.
It's in the doghouse. It's in the doghouse.
It's in the doghouse. I like it. Christian doesn't like things in the doghouse. I kind of do.
Oh, yeah. Christian won't even look at this.
No, you probably won't even look at it.
I mentioned copper on the show yesterday, which was getting a bit of a boost. I would like to see it begin to kind of get out of the range a little bit. So that's copper futures. I'm watching a couple names in this group. MP is a group that is a name that had a really nice day yesterday.
Tariffs help
And
that.
last couple days. So I mean that's one that's on my radar. But yeah, I've been underweight this group, but I'm always looking for something that's going to kind of lead the group a little bit. There's another one too, which is not necessarily copper, but more like a stainless steel play, which is CRS. That's a name that I'm long in a portfolio, which has been doing pretty well. But yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely kind of worthy to kind of look at some of these names that haven't moved. My go-to in the copper space is always SCCO. It always gets overlooked by because FCX is so much more popular. But I think continue
None
to
of
kind
these
of
stocks are really healthy looking charts.
Not at
Yeah.
The
all.
story, but what I would do is put them on your watch list, and if the charts start to look productive, where you start getting like consolidation, they start to look like that hook I like to talk about, coming up at the bottom and starting to show some life. I do think there's a copper story here. Like I never really was thinking. Well, obviously, you're trying to think about all implications for AI, but copper is an AI play. Copper, I'll say it today, is an AI play. It's a matter of when the market starts to pay attention, is what I think. But, there's obviously all kinds of implications here. We got to think about the administration coming in, all kinds of different things you can think about. But copper is definitely an AI play.
Okay,
So,
I mean they're out. I mean you have outs in these things. That's one thing that we talk about. If you're going into a trade, it's not always how much money that you can make; it's how much you can lose. And like just going back to this Micron chart, I mean we talked about that 85 level. How many
huge,
times did it give you a
huge.
chance to buy it under
Yeah,
90?
I
And it's
should be actually beaten for that, not
uh,
rebuying that.
set it and forget it. Sometimes that's the best thing. Someone says NAK. No, oh, now there. Well, that's a penny stock, so we'll get that off the screen here.
Yeah, we don't need to talk penny
SCCO.
stocks.
But Christian, you like to get what did you say your ETF was for this one that you liked?
I'm sorry, which
COPX.
COPX. Okay.
COPX is the minor here. So if you're
And what's the top?
interested,
Do you
just
know the top component in that?
I can go find out for you. I think it's
Okay.
probably Freeport McMoran. It's probably near the top. COPX components. We just have to ask that.
It's
So
a
we
bunch
go
of
into
it's got a lot of international copper names. First Quantum, which I think is a Canadian name.
FM.
You got about
on
10
50.
to 10 different international names before you
All
get to
kinds of
US.
international. Freeport isn't there. It's 4.32% of it. But Ivanhoe Mines, which is trades in Canada as well. A lot of Canadian names in here. London Mining, LUNDIN, that is. Southern Copper is definitely in there. Freeport McMoran is in there as well. I
Hey,
don't see any
Dennis,
Alcoa in there. I guess they're done with
Dennis,
Alcoa.
to change the subject real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
This came up in the chat. The big resignation by Trudeau. I have not heard you mentioned as a candidate yet. I know.
Yeah, I should. You want me to leave the Liberal Party? I'm conservative, though. I've
Oh,
always been
okay.
conservative.
So well,
I've always
maybe.
voted conservative. I'll just
I
say what I
mean,
vote.
a lot of this talk about, the United. I mean, I don't know what we need Canada for besides maple syrup, and beer. But
The
I mean,
51st state.
what I mean
It
that
starts as a joke, and like, when does it not a joke anymore? Like, do I have to like worry about invasion here happening, like coming in here and like it wouldn't take much to take over Canada. We'd be in a whole lot of trouble. Like I said, we got hockey sticks and maple syrup bombs. That's what we would do to defend ourselves. But we hope it doesn't come to that. So we'll just leave the 51st state out here right now. DDD for the governor of the 51st state. Well, I kind of like the sounds of that. DDD for the governor, DDD for the prime minister. Not running for prime minister, not this time around anyways.
But no, I mean, obviously, it's going to take a while for these things to ferret out. And but someone was just asking your initial thoughts on that.
Yeah, like 1812. That's like the war. They're talking war of 1812. That was the year 1812. If the U.S. would have won that war, Canada would be we would be the 51st state already here. Obviously, Britain came in, and the war actually, if you read, it was like 4 years of like fighting, and then it just ended at a standstill. Like it ended up as a draw. So, but the problem is, I don't think Breton's coming to our defense this time. So we'd be in a whole lot of trouble.
Yeah, that was boy. I remember that war. That was quite
You
some
remember? Yeah,
war
it was
there.
back when you were just
Yeah,
a baby
yeah,
there,
yeah, yeah. Well, I was
1812. Who still
kindergarten.
remembers that?
Actually, kindergarten. I was in
You're in
kindergarten.
kindergarten. Oh,
Yeah, I
yes.
was kindergarten back then. Okay. All right. So yesterday was the busiest day of the year for analysts. What
I
about
think so.
today?
One of the busiest. So these 2 days we've already mentioned are two of the busiest days for analysts. Analysts normally driving the bus. Obviously, CES conference last night was driving the bus. But let's talk, analyst ratings here. And I want to start with the big gun that is getting the downgrade here this morning. And it is indeed Apple getting downgraded to sell at Moffett-Nathanson. So this is definitely a contrarian call, a bold call. There is not a lot of sell ratings on the street on Apple. It's traded down $2.30. It's not down significantly here. Again, Apple just seems to hold up and shrug off everything, and Moffett-Nathanson is, followed, but it's not like it's one of the majors. It's, it's a boutique, but people, do follow them, and it is trading down 1% here right now. Christian, I want to get your thoughts on Apple.
Apple. It seems like it's since the beginning of the year, it's had this real nice run to it, but it just seems like it's lost that upside momentum to it. It seems like a couple of these analysts are piling on a little bit.
Yeah.
Even though it had that positive news yesterday with Foxconn, it didn't seem like that was in the spotlight right now. So it just seems to be out of favor a little bit, but I kind of like the consolidation. I kind of like that it's getting out of favor because I didn't really trade Apple for the most part in December. I made this huge run and I just kind of watched it. I really didn't participate in this too much. So I like that it's getting this like negative attention for whatever reason. I don't think like there's really anything negative, that you have to worry about Apple. I think Joel mentioned this yesterday that, especially like the iPhone stuff, you get these reports from time to time where they talk, something negative about, oh my God, the iPhone sales aren't going well. And it seems like every time, knock on wood, it seems like those are buying opportunities. So
Yeah.
I like it. Not yet, but I'm kind of putting it on, my radar. I would watch 241. Like that's a level, that was the lows from the other day. Where it had a weak little bounce to it, but I would watch this 241
242.
level.
Actually, it's 230, 241.87 and a half because the two lows were 41.82 and 41.89. So I to me right there, boom, let's call it that. And there was look at those lows back at 241.75. Also, I see your 41 and a quarter low. And it just bounced off that of pre-market. I'm going to go ahead and early on in the session make that a 3-star there for Apple. A couple O's in the same area. After
I,
that, though, it's
I
just
want,
kind of open.
yeah.
Go ahead, Dennis.
Before you move on from this stock, I want to read from the Moffett-Nathanson note. And I don't think they could have said this better. I would agree with this statement wholeheartedly. Apple, this is from the Moffett-Nathanson note. Apple is truly a great company, and they are the purveyors of truly amazing products. Their management team is exceptional. Their low capex AI strategy is compelling. But Apple's share price discounts nothing but good news. Its growth rate is by far the lowest of the Mag 7, and yet its multiple is the highest. Yeah, I don't know if that's true actually, but it's close to it. The outlook for Apple shares, given the challenging backdrop, is unfortunately decidedly unattractive in our view. I couldn't agree with that more. Fantastic company, management awesome. I owned it in my long-term portfolio for the better part of a decade. The reason I sold it a long time ago, like 185. The reason I bought it at 25 was my average cost. The reason I sold it was exactly this. It's like when I bought this thing, it was trading 12 times earnings, and then it was 14. And they're like, well, eventually it should have a staple multiple because the iPhone's a staple. So it should be trading in the mid 25 to 27. That's what everybody was arguing for it to trade up on valuation. So the multiple expanded from 12 to 25. And now the multiple has overshot. We've simply overshot. And you know what I always say? When the story is hot, when the company's just pumping out new products and flying fundamentally, valuation doesn't matter at all. But you know what? This Apple story is not hot. this Apple story is kind of cool, compared to some of the others. So you got a valuation that of 40, it's 40 times current earnings. But again, we don't like to look at current earnings. I always look at forward earnings. Forward multiples 33. That is not cheap. I think I watched the NVIDIA conference last night. Again, NVIDIA could be cyclical. There could be some pull forward. But NVIDIA on a forward basis is 34. I mean, it's like comparing apples to oranges here, pun kind of intended. NVIDIA's just got so much more upside potential than Apple, in my opinion, and the multiple's almost the same. So, I mean, it's tough to just come in here and say, yeah, Apple, Apple, Apple. It's been Apple, 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 folks, for the better part of 20 years now. I think it's time for Apple's valuation to contract a little bit here. So maybe they grow into it, which they always have. But I mean, this is the most expensive that Apple has been in a very long time. And I'm talking decades. At 34, 35 times earnings, this thing is really, really expensive.
Okay, what else are the analysts hopping on today?
Lulu. And my buddy Mike across the street from me is a Lulu bull. I was talking to him yesterday. He's like, I just bullish this Lulu. And the reason he was like, I was listening to pre-market prep back when you guys were talking about this at 250, 260. And I said, I think the Lulu low is in. He actually bought it. I did not. Should have listened to my own commentary there. But Lululemon is now getting upgraded here again this morning from Bernstein. Stock is 405. Lululemon is back. It seems like they're doing everything right now. Analysts.
You know who pounded the table on this?
No, well, I was like bullish, but I didn't pound the table.
You didn't pound the table on it, and we argued with him about it.
Well, I was bullish, and no doubt I was bullish 250, so I didn't argue that much about it. But who pounded the table?
AB
did.
And
is AB long?
Yeah, well, he talked about it. I don't know if he ever did, but AB update. AB has a new job.
Yeah.
He's back to work. I was going to call him to make sure he wasn't late the first day.
You won't do that. Don't even talk about stuff like that publicly.
But Dennis, I'm joking. And then what I wanted to also say.
But AB has also said to us that he will help us out still on a part-time basis as well. Whatever you can do.
AB was at the Lions game, not to digress too much. And I want to give a shout out. Is Craig in the chat today? Is Craig around? Because Craig went up to him and said, "Hey, are you on pre-market prep?" And he said, "Yeah." And so he felt like he was well known. Now that's happened to me, I think once, Dennis. You said twice, but I think that's only happened to me once. That was at a wedding in Colorado. But Craig, if you're in the chat, hello. AB says hello, and AB, if you're listening, get some good content. We're going to get you on the show. We're going to get him on again real soon. So that's an AB update. Let's talk about a downgrade, Dennis, in a stock that you own.
A Tesla?
Yes.
Yeah, Tesla.
I saw it down.
Yeah, it did. Tesla getting downgraded. Again, we talked Tesla a little bit already off the bat with obviously the conference, and I was saying I don't think anything was good news from that conference from Tesla last night. Like, it puts everybody, like, if they weren't thinking competition for Tesla, that made me think lots of competition for Tesla. So not great news. Bank of America Securities downgrading Tesla to neutral on valuation and execution risk. So they are actually, this is such a weird downgrade here, because they're downgrading from buy to neutral, but they're raising their price target from 400 to 490.
Oh, I love that.
Go figure this one out. Like, if you can understand this, let me know. Because they raise their price target from 400 to 490, which, if it's a 490 price target, it sounds like a buy to me, because 403 or 411 when it closed to 490 is some significant upside. Yet they downgrade from buy to hold. That makes no sense whatsoever. Sorry, who's the analyst here? Sorry, the John Murphy from Bank of America. I don't get it, buddy. Sorry, don't get it.
But what I don't get even more than that is the recent high of the move was 488.54. So is it going
Maybe he
back?
thinks his price target was hit, and then he's like booking it from that price. Oh, I sold up there, but I'm a little late getting the note out here. And it's not that I don't, it's not that I'm mad about the downgrade or anything like that. I mean, I don't like my stocks getting downgraded, but I mean, I just don't get the price target increase by 90 points, by literally 25%, and a downgrade of the stock. It's like the exact opposite. You're doing two different things, buddy. I don't understand that whatsoever.
Christian, what's your take on this? You're an analyst guru.
It's another downgrade based on valuation. So it's kind of, I kind of ignore some of these ratings where they're just out there and they're like, hey, the stock has gone up and I'm going to downgrade, I'm going to downgrade it. I mean, it's kind of like the same thing. Dennis brings up a great point about the valuation getting stretched in Apple, but to me, it's the same thing. Like, these are things that will like depress the stock for a day or two,
Yeah.
but they're usually buying opportunities. Like, if you don't really have anything to say about, like, to me, like, fundamentally about the business, it's just that you think the stock has run too much. Like, okay, like, maybe you're just like hedging your bets out as an analyst, but for the most part, it is what it is. These analyst ratings, or some of them are just like, okay, they're going to depress the stock for a couple days, and then you kind of move on, and everybody forgets about it.
All right, is that it, Trip? Is that it for the
Yeah, I mean, I've already talked Tesla. Like, I'm somewhat concerned about the competition.
No, I meant
here,
other ratings.
Other ratings. So let's no, there's all kinds of them here. So if you just want me to go, I can just ream them off here again like I did yesterday. Let's go to the upgrades page here. Just bringing it up. Bear with me here.
Yeah, let me do the Lulu real quick.
Yeah, go ahead. Give us numbers on Lulu. And then I'll give you all the
I
upgrades.
did do the Lulu. I like Lululemon, and I got Lisa's.
I liked
birthday
it back
coming.
at 250, 300. Now
I
it's a little
know.
bit. I missed it.
Well, let's see here. You traded just at the highs of the pre-market session on 14,000 shares. I got a level for you, and it's just a minor level. 407.55. You hit that. Let's call 406. This is a decent area if you're not a big believer. Keep an eye on 406. And the reason I say that is because it spots a pair of highs from December 10th and December 11th. So keep an eye on that. I'll just make it a 2-star. If it runs to 410, don't say, oh, Joel told me to sell it at 406. But then if it, has a nice rally this morning, starts to roll over, make sure it holds 406. 406 area, 2-star.
Here's an upgrade that was badly needed. RBC Capital upgraded its Carvana to outperform.
I saw that.
And that was badly needed because this stock has been leaking. Obviously got Hindenburged. Didn't go down much on it, but a little bit it went down here, and it's just kind of hanging out here now. So it's up $11 here this morning. They are raising their rating up to outperform. Price target up to $280. Yeah. So I'm not going to read from all the notes because we just don't have the time to do that. But we got Cameron coming on. But I mean, big pop here for Carvana. I mean, you got Hindenburg saying all kinds of shenanigans are going on here, but the market really didn't hit it hard. And then you got Carvana getting upgrade. RBC Capital is basically back up to where the Hindenburg report came out, 2 days later. So thoughts?
Nothing here. Nothing here on the dailies. In fact, you got some room up. 212.89. We'll see if it holds these gains on up $10.50. Pretty decent volume. If you think that they're right on this, and this was just a nice, healthy pullback here with the double bottom under 180, maybe hold out for this 222, 220, 223, 224 area. Triple top at 225.5. So nice move here for Carvana.
So just a couple other ones quickly here. Sorry, I had it up here. I'll just ream off the upgrades. We can do the downgrades after Cameron here as well. Upgrades, Alta gets upgraded to neutral. I don't really like the neutrals. And one thing to consider, I'll just stop there for a second teaching moment here. When you're upgrading, people are like, oh, it's upgraded. You get upgrade to neutral. It's not worth nearly as much as an upgrade to buy. So just keep that in mind. GLJ researched our buddy Gordo. Double upgrades Cleveland Cliffs to buy. He never messes around. When Gordo does a rating, he doesn't mess around. He go right from sell to buy. So Cleveland Cliffs upgraded from sell to buy. Gordon Johnson, who've been out on the show lots of times, obviously Tesla Bear. We should get Gordon Johnson back on here sometime just to battle it out to a certain extent. He's upgrading Cleveland Cliffs, CLF. What are your thoughts? Any thoughts here on this one? Because this one's been in the gutter too, but steel's starting to show a little bit of life.
Is this the one I said my brother-in-law likes? I don't know. I think, but I don't know. I mean, if steel, copper, I mean, good risk reward here. I mean, up 16 cents, so obviously not moving a whole lot on it. I mean, it's really gone. No, it's been between 10 and 20 for the better part of 2.5 years. So, maybe it's at the bottom end of its range. They're
Gordon
not the
is a
one.
contrarian too, like a
Yeah.
contrarian at heart. It hasn't been a contrarian market, but he was not afraid to buy stocks at the bottom and try to sell them at the top. He is a
Who-
contrarian. You got to give Gordon that. People really give him a lot of heat because obviously the bearishness on Tesla. But I mean, this person makes bold. There are probably no analysts on the street that's more bold in their calls than Gordon Johnson.
Okay,
So and more convicted in their
8:35.
calls than Gordon Johnson.
8:35, right? So it's time to bring on our guest from NewEdge Wealth. We haven't talked to her yet this year. Let's bring on Cameron Dawson. All right. Good morning, Cameron. Hi. That's a nice smile. That's a nice way to start the day, start the new year. How you feeling about 2025?
I'm excited. I think it's going to be a really interesting, fascinating year. Maybe a little bit more interesting than up and to the right, low volatility kinds of markets, but that's a lot of opportunity to make changes and take advantage of volatility.
Rotation, right? Where's the money going to go? But one of the primary things that you like to look at is the rise, and you call it the rise of GDP growth revisions. And we seem to be kind of stuck here as far as GDP. So looking at 24 and 25, what are your thoughts?
Well, I think that this is probably these charts about GDP growth revisions are probably the most important charts of the last 2 years, which just has meant that we've been in an environment where we are constantly raising forecasts for the US economic growth. This is a fantastic environment for risk assets. When you're raising growth forecasts, not only are you thinking that you're more confident in your earnings forecasts, but typically it's associated with rising valuation multiples as well, because you're simply more confident about the future. So the question for 2025 is that we do start the year with a much higher bar compared to where we were in 2024. This chart shows you that estimates for 2024 dropped at 0.5%, and then over the course of the last year and a half or so have risen to over 2.7% as growth continues to come in better than expected. 25 estimates start at 2.1%, so not nearly as low of a bar. And it's the question of, do we continue to see this upward revision cycle in GDP, or are there things that could cause GDP revisions lower? We think we're probably well calibrated where we are. It's slightly higher than 2%, but we don't see nearly as much upside to GDP estimates this year compared to prior years.
Seem kind of stuck, right? I mean, it's not getting, not blasting over 3 and won't break down that much under 2. But a lot of this is depends on the consumer, right? And so far, consumer been being able to fend off inflation. Will that remain the same?
Well, the consumer has benefited from the fact that as inflation has fallen, wage growth has fallen at a slower pace. So, what that translates to is real wage growth being positive. One of the reasons why the consumer was under so much pressure in a year like 2022, and why you saw big cuts to forecasts in household consumption, why you saw consumer discretionary stocks really underperform consumer staple stocks, is because prices were growing faster than incomes. And now it's been different. You have incomes growing faster than prices, so consumers have more of that purchasing power. A lot of that has to do with oil. Don't forget the oil prices on a year-over-year basis have effectively been down consistently for the last 2 years. And when we think about the consumer, it's important to remember that there are two very different realities that the consumer lives in. The top end of the income earners are really what's driving this consumption higher. Remember that the top 20% of income earners make up 40% of overall consumption, so they really outpunch their weight. And those consumers are benefiting from soaring asset prices at the same time that you have high interest rates on cash. Cash balances still remain really high. So they're in one of the best positions that they've ever been in. At the low end, you have consumers that are dealing with higher inflation that they feel more, but you also see these delinquencies really starting to pick up. They feel higher interest rates more, but they only make up 10% of consumption. The bottom 20% of income earners, only 10% of consumption, which is why you're able to see in aggregate consumers hold up. We don't think, again, kind of like GDP, that there's nearly as much upside to household consumption forecasts in 2025, but we're taking our cues from the equity market here. If discretionary stocks continue to outperform staples on an equal weighted basis, we think that the consumer is effectively holding in fine. If this starts to roll over, that's when we'll start to raise our eyebrows and maybe grow a little bit more concerned.
Cameron, what about your thoughts on inflation here? Because obviously this is dependent on inflation staying low for 2025. Tariff talk has some people concerned, including myself, that inflation could start to creep back. I mean, I think it's why the Fed is kind of on pause to a certain extent, because they want to kind of see where this administration is going. Obviously, other countries are kind of, beating inflation, but, or to a certain extent, at least they look like they've beaten it at this point in time. But do you think there's a possibility that inflation starts to creep back into this economy?
It's a non-zero risk for 2025. It comes from kind of two big exogenous buckets, is what we would call it. The first one being policy. Tariff and immigration policy could both be inflationary, mostly if it disrupts supply chains, meaning that you see people pull forward and you see people having to shift around supply chains. All of those things can start to filter into the system, where a one-time price shift, which is what a tariff is, actually ends up becoming something that's more embedded and causes inflation to accelerate, mostly on the goods line of thing. And it's good to remember, durable goods have been in deflation for almost 2 years now. And so that could shift and start to trend higher. The other big bucket of exogenous inflation would be oil prices. As I mentioned earlier, oil prices have been consistently down over the last 2 years on a year-over-year basis. This is great for consumers. It's effectively like a tax cut. But if you were to see some kind of exogenous oil shock, given how tight the labor market still is, and yes, we've seen some easing, but how tight the labor market still is, how inflationary there still is this lingering in the system, we don't know if this economy would be able to digest and tolerate either that exogenous oil shock or exogenous policy shock as well, which means you could see inflation trend higher. It's not our base case at this time, but we do see it as a key wild card as we move through 2025, something that markets certainly aren't pricing in, but maybe with bond market yields moving up so much, maybe that's something that they're starting to sniff out.
Hey, Cameron. So this is a great slide that you have up. This is just looking at the two different sectors in the consumer, discretionary versus staples. I mean, I was just watching the price action yesterday, and meanwhile, it was a good day for tech. The consumer staples basically got run over, and we're making new lows. So looking at interest rates and what they've been doing, yields, I keep hearing, like, in financial media, more and more, like, people are starting to notice the move in yields. Do you think that the yields move is going to stay and kind of continue to see that consumer discretionary is going to outperform staples like this, and just staples are going to continue to be in the doghouse? Or do you think something is going to change with this trend?
It really depends on the outlook for household consumption, and it sort of is a circular reference. So the reason we use discretionary versus staples as a good indicator of where the consumer could be going is because typically you do see staples outperform in a time when people are dashing for safety, when there's this expectation that people are going to pull back significantly on any kind of discretionary spending, and thus you see this rotation out of cyclicals into defensives. And as you can see, back in 2022, this was actually a really good leading indicator of what was going on within overall household consumption forecasts. And so as we think about the yield question and how higher yields could weigh on consumption, it is a really important point that 2025 could be a year that housing activity starts to really disappoint. There was this expectation that the Fed's going to come bail you out. It was a survive to 2025, get a mortgage because interest rates are going to move lower. And that's not happening. And given the fact that affordability is still so stretched, you're now in an environment where housing construction activity is likely to moderate pretty significantly as we go through 25. And Neil Dutta has been pointing this out, saying, hey, there's downside to GDP growth forecasts because look at what the home builders are telling you. They're underperforming. They're breaking down. They're showing top formations. They're telling you that yields are going to start weighing on activity in a more meaningful way. You combine that with things like rising delinquencies. All of these things suggest that yields are starting to weigh in a more significant way on the consumer. However, it's the low-income consumer. The high-income consumer is still far more resilient to it, which is why we're still in this uptrend of discretionary versus staples.
All right, Cameron, let's keep things moving along. And valuation. What's that? Does that even matter? Let's talk about the valuation paradigm.
Yeah, it's kind of like where we're going, we don't need roads. Like where we're going, we don't need PE multiples. Look, the valuation is really fascinating because it's where we've been surprised by the market the most over the last year is the ability for this equity market to trade back up to 2020 highs in valuations. And it's good to put context around that 2020 high in valuation. Remember, money supply was growing 30%. The Fed was doing trillions of dollars of balance sheet expansion, and you had depressed earnings in 2020 because of the pandemic. And so you put a higher valuation on depressed earnings, and thus you had this spike in valuations, which was burned off over the course of 2021 and 2022. Now we're in an environment where you can't say any of that, meaning earnings are certainly not depressed, and the Fed is maybe tweaking policy rates lower, but they're not flooding the markets with liquidity. So obviously this captures some of the optimism around AI. It captures some of the optimism around the fact that the S&P 500 has much larger weightings to companies that are higher quality, higher return on invested capital. But what we say here is that just be careful about the narratives around new paradigms. New paradigm narratives always emerge near the top of a valuation cycle when people are trying to justify excessive valuations today to say, don't worry about it, everything's going to be fine, and we can justify these ultra expensive valuations. You saw it back in the 2000s or 1990s and the early 2000s. You certainly saw it back in 1929. There's a great quote by Irving Fisher that he says stocks have reached a sustainable high plateau not too long before the overall top in the markets in 1929. So we do know that these valuation paradigm narratives happen, and the question for 25 is, do you push into a new high in valuation? Do you get above that 2020 high? If you do, we think you are in bubble territory. If you don't, and valuations act as a ceiling, it means that your returns over the course of 2025 probably look like overall earnings growth at best, meaning that 2025 will be a year that you grow into these excessive valuations, kind of like 2021 was, and certainly 2022 was a bear market. So it's two very different directions that this market could go.
Okay, so after a couple of years of the Mag 7,
we missed that 6. Go back up. I want to see what that slide was. You scrolled over a slide, Joel. I want to see it. That slide looked good. Russell 1000 growth versus value. I want to talk about this.
Cameron, I think Dennis wants to talk about this one.
Does he?
I knew you went right over it. I was like, I want to see what she's talking about on this slide here. So growth versus value.
Cameron, why'd you skip over this one?
We've been talking about this on PreMarket Prep for the last 2 months. This has been the last 2 months. Maybe that's why he doesn't want to talk about it, because we've been talking about this for the last 2 months. But I mean, December in itself was some of the most violent rotation that I've ever seen in my 26 years of professional trading, where you had growth stocks going straight up and value stocks going straight down. I mean, I use the Nucor versus Palantir or Tesla, whatever you want to use. I mean, this rotation was absolutely violent, and you have, multiple compression in a lot of value names where you have the multiple expansion in all the growth names. What are your thoughts here for 2025? Does this continue, or do we continue to see growth just lead the charge and value get thrown away?
Yeah, what we've seen typically, historically, is that these parabolic moves higher in growth versus value are not sustainable, but that the reversion from that is not necessarily trend ending. So what I mean by that is that you have the potential for a value snapback because the outperformance of growth over value was so extreme in the month of December. Even on an equal weight basis, the spread between the Mag 7 and the equal weight S&P 500 reached nearly 20% in December, which is insane for 1 month. And so what we think is set up for is a reversion of growth versus value, at least in a short period of time, but not necessarily something that is as sustained as you saw in 2022. In order for value to significantly outperform growth like it did in 22, we think you have to see value earnings outperform growth earnings, which means that things like healthcare, industrials, financials, energy all have to deliver, and they have not been delivering over the last 2 years. And it likely means that tech and comm services, overall Mag 7, needs to disappoint. Don't forget that 55% of the growth index is the Mag 7. And 55% of the growth index being the Mag 7 is expected to actually have decelerating earnings growth next year, not bad earnings growth, just decelerating. And the rest of the growth index is expected to see a huge acceleration in earnings growth. So we actually think that there's high bars everywhere for earnings growth in 2025. But at least the message from this chart is enough for a quick snapback and reversion, not necessarily enough for a trend change, but we'll see. We'll change our minds if we start to see better things in earnings from a value perspective.
All right. The next one, take two. All right. As I was saying, you had the consolidation here between the equal weight and the Mag 7, and it just exploded here in 23 and 24. Do you see a little bit of reversion to the mean, or is this just going to keep on widening?
The stat that is most incredible to us is that since the beginning of 2023, the Mag 7 has grown earnings by 125%, and the average stock has grown earnings by 9%, which means that all of the earnings growth, almost all of the earnings growth experienced by the S&P 500, which of course has the larger weighting to the Mag 7, has come from this small cohort of names. And that despite the fact that you've seen upward surprises to GDP growth, relatively healthy nominal GDP growth, that the average stock in the US simply has not been able to deliver. And it really is a winner take all kind of market. We do think that Mag 7 earnings growth will start to level off at or slow its pace of growth in 2025, simply because of tougher comps. You have Amazon and Nvidia are really slowing in their earnings growth. It's still really healthy, but it's slowing. The only Mag 7 name that is expected to see a big acceleration in earnings growth in 25 is Tesla. And so as that starts to slow down, we would expect to see the degree of outperformance of Mag 7 names start to slow down. But this chart shows you why the market has been narrow. This is exactly why you have seen such a small cohort of names drive all the gains, because it really just comes down to earnings. The other names just aren't delivering on earnings. And I would note that there is a big expectation for earnings growth of equal weight stocks to accelerate next year from about 2% up to 14% next year. That might be too high of a bar. So, we could still be in this world where earnings growth is narrow and thus the market returns are narrow until this starts to change direction.
All right, let's just finish up with the consumer. And you've had a generation of investors. Some learn from their parents, learn the hard way. You have the pandemic, which brought out a whole different group of investors here. We seems like we have a lot of believers in the stock market here in our chat and over. Is this a trend for 2025?
Yeah, I mean, there are certainly high hopes in this market as we put here, high hopes, high apple pie in the sky hopes. This is showing you consumers' expectations for stocks to be higher over the next 12 months. And you can see it's reached a record level. You combine that with other signs of sentiment and positioning. Look at AAII bull bear surveys, look at household allocations of stocks being your 20-year highs, look at speculative options activity, leverage ETF buying, and lastly, some of the price action in some of the most speculative parts of the market all suggest that people are very optimistic and they're positioned for their optimism. This does not have to mean the end of a bull market. Certainly peaks in sentiment persisted over the course of 2021 and you still saw great returns, but you cannot ignore the fact that people are already having high expectations and eventually this will weigh on forward returns because we're already on one side of the boat. So something we're watching really closely, I'd add into this, leverage levels have increased a lot. If you look at FINRA margin loan balances, they're up 45% in the last year, which just means that people are reaching for wanting to juice and expand returns. Again, not necessarily a bad thing, but it certainly is something that shows you that people are getting increasingly long this market and now in a leveraged way, which suggests that eventually that will be a risk.
One issue or one sector that was asked about, if you want to comment or not, the oil sector, the outlooks for 2025.
Yeah, one of the things that has just been so darn consistent is estimate revisions downward for energy stocks. And we think that those have to stabilize. Yes, prices do lead data. So you have tried to see multiple times where energy stocks have rallied and have simply not been able to hold on to it because you're still cutting estimates. So every time we've seen these short-term rallies within energy stocks, it's all valuation based. So we really do think that you need to see a stabilization within the earnings line of energy stocks for this to be a sustainable move. We do think energy stocks still act as a good hedge in portfolios, and that's their best kind of role, we think, in portfolios, effectively to say that if you do see an exogenous oil price shock, everything else will do poorly. And so to be able to get that kind of hedge, it does make sense to own something like this in portfolios in the event that we see inflation tick higher on the back of higher oil prices.
All right, that has been an awesome interview with Cameron Dawson from NewEdge Wealth joining us here on Pre-Market Prep. Cameron, thanks again, and we'll be dialing you up again next month. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Happy New Year, guys.
Thanks, Cameron.
Thanks, Cameron.
All right, we are continuing to climb here and slow and steady, trading at the highs of the pre-market session. We got nothing in here as far as resistance. Yesterday's high, Monday's high is way up at 60, 68 and a quarter. So just floating higher. Dennis, where do you see?
It's NVIDIA driving the bus. I mean, you can clearly see all the tech names, all the names mentioned at CES yesterday, showing a lot of life. I mean, obviously, NVIDIA is one up significantly, but we know Micron, which we already talked about earlier. Accenture would be on my watch list here for today. It's kind of flying under the radar, but they talked a lot about it. I wouldn't be surprised if that catches a bit today. It's kind of been depressed too. So the Accenture actually is interesting to me. It would need to catch. If I was buying Accenture today, I would want immediate gratification though. Like I think it's flying under the bus. I know it shows 600,000 shares traded here this morning, but that's all. That was mostly a cross, so it really hasn't traded hardly at all here this morning. So that one's interesting to me, and it was up last night too. You can see, Joel, but it's kind of pulled back, and people aren't thinking about it. But it was mentioned multiple times there, and it had its own special slide even in the NVIDIA presentation.
Look
so
at this.
I wouldn't be surprised if institutional money managers come in here today and start looking at this one. I don't own it.
You know what? Look at this 355 area. Holy
big level.
Macro. Not one, not two, not three, not four, but 5 highs in that area. So 5 highs in the same area.
Above that gets interesting.
Yeah, 5 stars.
It's on my list, like watch list here.
You guys want my acronym. Okay?
Yeah.
And I'm just not as bullish as you guys are for this year.
Well, I was sideways. Christian's bullish.
Yeah,
I was kind of. Are you bearish?
I'm not bearish. I'm not bearish because it doesn't pay to be bearish. Okay. But I'm cautious. Okay. And you guys know I love sports, right? So combining those two, I kind of had to do a double dipper here. I really wanted to do. Oh, I'll tell you what the original one is. Punk, PUNC. Okay, all right. So let's guess the P.
It's not Palantir, is it?
It is Palantir.
Oh
It
my
is.
gosh, he's getting bullish Palantir up here.
No,
But you
bearish.
didn't do it.
Bearish. These are
Oh, you're
all
talking the
these
short
are all
side.
bearish
Holy
calls.
cow. Joel came up with a short acronym. This is interesting now.
Yeah. Yep.
Now
Yep.
you got me sitting up in my seat here.
Yes. Yes.
But this is not the acronym. This is what you were originally going to go with.
No, this is my original acronym is PUNC.
So this is the one you're pitching us to today. PUNC.
I'm going to pitch all of them today.
Okay, go.
Okay. Palantir up 340% last year. I looked at the earnings and like these tech stocks, man, when they were just busting earnings, they were just crushing it, and they've incrementally just beat earnings. Okay. So I just haven't been impressed with the earnings beats. Haven't done a lot of research on expiration of lockups and everything. I'd be aware of that. And also, I mean, they still burn pretty good cash. So, I mean, why not do an offering? So I'm cautious. I'm not bearish. These stocks I am cautious on. And only one of the four is in one of my portfolios. And I'll get to that. That's
Okay, so you're calling a bearish call on Palantir, which is a bold call. What's the U?
Guess.
Oof. You. It can't be Unity. I don't think it's Unity.
No.
Upstart?
No.
Is it a bearish call?
They're all bearish calls. They're all bearish.
They're all bearish. Joel's full. Alta? They're saying Alta in the chat.
Nope. I almost thought of a bullish one with Estee Lauder, but nope.
Alta? What the hell else is there? UPS? United
It's one
Health?
of the biggest gainers of last year.
Biggest gainers of last year, which is a U. Oh, man. UAL.
Yeah.
Yeah, chat got it as soon as I saw it. Who wasn't in the chat? It was TSA from the chat, said UAL. Spinner too. UAL. Yeah, UAL. Holy. Mr. Contrarian over here. I love it.
All right. So this is playing major catch up for all the years of being a dog, and I know it still trades at a low valuation, but I mean, when I think of airlines, I just think of like the Roach Motel. You know, they let you in, but they don't let you out. And, you know, is this a breakout? Is this going to keep going? I think about international travel. I think there's always competition. I looked at Delta. Delta's my favorite airlines. And I'm not saying go out and short these things. But what I'm saying is that, you know, expectations should be.
And take the money and run if you're in them.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. You guys are never going to get my N.
Well,
You'll
it's not
never get
NVIDIA, obviously, then.
No.
Netflix?
No,
You're not going to get it small. NTRA?
Yes.
You went off the board on this one.
Yes.
Okay, tell us about why you're bearish Natira. And holy cow, Christian's rolling over because these are all stocks sitting up near their all-time highs. Christian's like, holy crap, he's going completely against my core strategies of momentum. Complete contrarian versus momentum here. Why NTRA?
They never made money.
Really? I don't know much about the company, but
yeah. They've never made
money.
That's
your bearish thesis. They never made money.
Well, also, they're like in the healthcare diagnostic testing. And I just look at like the healthcare sector, and I don't know about Medicare and reimbursements of all this stuff, but they lose money. They always lose money. So, I mean,
$22 billion market cap to lose money.
Yes.
Wow. These are such bold calls. I mean, me and Christian were kind of a little conservative now that I see these bold calls. Holy cow.
Okay. Now,
what's the C?
Okay. Now, the last one is my C, but I almost wanted to do T.
But
And
punt.
you know what my
Punt
T
would have been cool.
punt would have been cool. I know, but I don't want to have a year-long argument with you.
Oh, you're going to do
Okay.
Tesla. He was going to do
Yeah,
Tesla.
yeah.
Bearish call on Tesla.
Yeah. And I mean,
Does Lisa still own Tesla?
no, we do not. No, I sold it
She's-
bad.
she sold
I
it.
sold it
Okay.
bad. I
Okay.
think probably under 200, but probably owned it at like 40 or 50. I just think like increasing competition from the US, also from China. Dennis, I think that like the FSD, I think maybe 2040. Okay.
It's not
And
2040, but the competition is a good
robo-taxis.
point.
And then the other thing is like robots. Okay. First of all, they're not here. Who in the hell can afford a robot? I mean, how much are they going to be? Like,
They're
how
going to
many
be
kids
$20,000 to $30,000 and going to do all your monotonous tasks.
Oh yeah, how many people could?
I'm bullish robotics. I'm
Okay.
hopeful that Tesla's going to lead the
I
charge.
know,
But
I
after
wanted
last night,
to
there's going to be a lot
punt.
of other companies there.
Okay. My C.
You should have stuck with it. It would have been fun.
All right. I just
But
didn't
go
want
with
to.
the C. Go with the C.
Okay, the C is in one of my portfolios.
Or he's
Or
talking
actually,
against his own portfolio.
it's a Lisa pick. I'm very nervous about it. It's not a super sexy company. We don't talk about it very much, but I'm worried about it. You want to take any guesses with the C?
Oh, man.
It's a retail stock.
It's a retail stock. Starts with C.
PreMarket. got it.
Costco?
Yeah.
Valuation's just always been crazy, but
Yeah.
this is I love these bearish calls. This is so good. I can't wait to tweet this out and see what the commentary is.
And
Those
then
Palantir people are gonna hate you on
I
Twitter.
know they hate me. I'm saying it's not going up 340%. Okay, so that's what I'm saying. Okay, Costco declining membership renewal rates. People are finding other places online. Whatever. Okay. I'm not a super fundamental guy, but the gross margins are not improving. They're declining, and comparable sales growth is declining too. And I just look at this thing. This thing is only up 40%, but I've looked at. I don't even want to look at where the cost basis is on it. So I'm just that's the C. So I went with punk instead of punt. But there is my acronym, our CNBC acronym. I had a hard time finding 4 stocks that I really love, but there you go. We got our
Wow.
acronym.
Those were bold calls. I'm going to tweet this acronym out momentarily just to get the commentary on what they're saying.
I'm going to get heat.
You're going to take some heat on the Palantir one for sure. So Palantir, UAL, NTRA. You won't take much heat on UAL, NTRA, or Costco, but the Palantir cult is real, man. You're going to talk bearish on this. They're going to eat you for breakfast. You know what? I love the contrarian. Like, I'm a contrarian at heart. Me and you, I was trained by you back in 1999 when I started trading under your wings there, Joel. I am contrarian at heart too, and I love the contrarian calls. I never considered going short, for my acronym there.
Yeah.
But I love it. I love it.
I mean, Dennis, this company has never made more than 10 cents a share.
This NTRA?
Palantir.
Palantir's, What's the PE on Palantir? Well, you can't even look at PE on Palantir.
Okay. All right. This is
the current PE, just multiples. Current PE on Palantir is 379. The forward PE is 158. The price to sales is 69 times. 69 times price to sales. That is incredible. But you know what? Just keeps expanding. So I'm not short, but I love that you're making a bearish call.
Okay, Intera, here are the last few quarters. Loss of 26 cents, a loss of 30 cents, a loss of 56 cents, a loss of 65 cents, a loss of 95 cents, a loss of 97 cents, a loss of $1.23, a loss of $1.37.
At least they're consistent. You got to give them applause for consistency, and the stock only goes up.
I You wanted an
You're
acronym.
making me bearish now. I'm going in there and short.
No. This is
I'm not short Costco.
This is it. This is my. I'm gonna retire from acronyms after this one. Next year, you guys can do your bullish acronyms.
It's
But
fun.
yeah,
Fast Money apparently is doing theirs today.
Who is?
Fast Money, I think, is doing theirs today. Their acronyms for the year. Fast Money.
And I think
We'll get our buddy Tim. We got to see what Tim's got.
I think you need balance on this show, and that's and actually I was talking with one of our potential sponsors yesterday, and he was asking about our audience, and he goes, what I tend to notice is that when the market goes down, I get less traffic, and I'm like, man, when the market goes down is when we have our best shows.
We do, actually. People are nervous. They're like, what are they saying over there? Pre-market prep. I got to know whether I got to buy or sell. It's actually true. Our traffic goes up when there's really bad days.
Yeah. Yep. So I figured if we have a contrarian show, I might as well make some contrarian picks. And are you Christian? Is this your last day? Are you quitting after this?
I like the ideas. I love them. Really good stuff.
He's with
you. I like the acronym.
Okay.
Christian. This is why Christian's such a fabulous trader, though, is because he'll stay bullish these things forever, and they start breaking down, and he knows when to get out. His timing is impeccable. So, he looks at these things too. And I'll tell you on the Palantir, I've tried to short it a couple of times already this year successfully too. I like the setup here. I mean, it's head and shouldery. It's got double top at 80 from the last couple of days. The stock keeps getting less because, they can't stop buying it here. But I've been preaching for leaders to laggards, laggards to leaders. Well, the laggards are starting to lead to a certain extent. NVIDIA, which has been a leader, is still leading though. But there are some leaders that are starting to show a little bit of lagging. And Palantir is one of them. One of your best stocks from 2024 is showing a little bit of, uncertainty, we'll just say, from their investors in 2025, because it's been met with, a couple of, significant, it's been met with some sellers here because it's starting to look a little bit toppy. So I kind of like your Palantir call. You got me interested on the short side on this, but I don't know. If I'm shorting it, it's like day trading only. Probably not going to swing.
Yeah, because if they get another contract for $250
that's the problem. If they get an upgrade overnight or something, the overnight risk on this puppy is always a lot.
$250 million contract, they'll add $2 billion to market cap. But there you go. Tomorrow we'll get some more contrarian calls, but on the bullish side, that will probably coming from David Nierengarten. He's the biotech healthcare analyst over there on Wednesday with Wedbush, even though it's a synthetic Thursday tomorrow. But extended show today, folks. I hope you liked it. Shout out to Cameron Dawson. She is awesome. Just great content there. And that's it for today, folks. Make sure you go and get the Brentster's email, or put your email in there. I'll post it one more time to get his wrap. And I got dozens and dozens of positive feedback. I want your feedback if this is something you like. Now, actually, I got feedback from a guy that listens to the show in Australia. Dude, we are global. And he says, sometimes I catch it live, sometimes I don't, but he loved the recap. So it's working. Go to there. Yeah. Pre-market prop. Christian, we lost Christian. I think
Christian gets busy at this time. So at 9 o'clock, you got to go trade. He gets busy, just like me. I get busy there too.
Okay.
So Christian. But we want to bring the Brentster on sometimes. So just in the background, Brent Slava, long time, obviously. Worked with him at Benzinga for a decade, we did. Brent's working with us in the background here. Slabadoo is his handle there in the chat. And he's working with us, helping us, write these raps, listening to us, trying to help us in the background as the show is going. So I want to bring Brent on, if we can, this week, just to reintroduce him to the chat. Okay. If you've been listening to us for a decade, Brent Slava. But if you haven't, let's bring Brent on, next week or not next week. Let's bring him on tomorrow if we can. Okay. Introduce, our team in the background. You guys know Josh. Josh is our tech guy in the background. But Brent's working. He's going to be helping moderate the chat and working with us too. So we're slowly building a really good team. The problem is eventually we're going to need some revenue because we're going to start paying. All these people are awesome. They're all working for free, but
Okay, hey Dennis, just real quick, we got someone from Guam listening here. We have someone from
Guam.
Germany.
Where's Guam?
It's right south.
Is that South America?
I'm not exactly sure.
Guam. Where is Guam? Gene, where Guam? I love this. We're if you're around the world, know.
Czechoslovakia. Israel. Patrick Mulligan. Where do you think Patrick Mulligan's from? Take a guess.
Got to be a golf country.
No, Patrick Mulligan.
Mulligan. Take a mulligan on it. I don't know. Thailand, Ireland, Holland. Okay,
yeah.
This is a really cool thing that we have. Saudi Arabia. They're everywhere. Sweden, Kent, England,
Paraguay,
North Korea, Florida. I love Florida. India,
England, North Korea.
Wow.
I don't know about
Vancouver Island, Germany.
I don't know about North Korea. Atlanta, Georgia. That's local.
We love Atlanta.
Okay. All right. We'll keep it going. We got any more? Southern California. E. Blair's getting up early. I know the North Korea was a joke. We know all the U.S. If you're from out of the country, let us know or let us know.
I like the U.S. too. We obviously have a lot. Winnipeg. There's a good Canadian city. Winnipeg right there. We'll show some of these. Romania. I'm showing them now.
Okay.
This is exciting. New Orleans by way of Japan. That's just funny in itself. Nice. We got somebody from Japan living in New Orleans. Milton, Ontario will give you a shout out there too. Milton, Ontario.
And if you're a bot,
I don't know where Tonga. I don't know where that is. Tonga.
Another one from Heidelberg, Germany. Okay. We're rocking. We're rolling.
I'm trying to show them all, but the chats move so fast I miss them.
Wow, I didn't realize that. Okay. All right. This is Lalo G who asked that question. Okay. All right. It's a wrap, folks.
Where's the land of 10,000 lakes? Sailing.
Minnesota.
Is that it? Minnesota?
Yes.
10,000 lakes in Minnesota?
I never
knew that. Wow.
Budapest. I've been to Budapest. I've been to Budapest. I have. What do we consider
actually,
Canada?
my grandfather was born in Hungary, so I have some history there. Yeah, I got some Hungarian in me. My grandfather's from Hungary.
Lisa's mom was born in Budapest. The Netherlands. Holy mackerel!
Just all over the place.
Wow, man.
Mars. Look at Tony, straight from Mars. We got them all. They're not even around the world. We're around the solar system now here. They're listening to us everywhere. Tony, Musk is going to get you back there one day. Okay, Singapore. I mean, we got to go. Netherlands. This is awesome. Okay, next time we'll do this again. That was fun.
Okay, wrap. It's a wrap. Everyone have a good day.